Preparing to live stream.
I'll get the live stream up, make sure it's. And this is the kind of thing that I want to do as well, like
Same.
be able to.
Hello, YouTuber people.
Hello, hello.
We are on YouTube. Yes. There we go. Okay, one sec. Let me see. Okay. Hello and welcome to the Everything F1 podcast. My name is Sean, and joining me for a somewhat special episode to discuss Red
Hmm.
Bull is Coops. Hey, Coops, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing all right. Pretty eventful week in the world of Red Bull and Formula One. So,
Certainly
what?
has been. Yeah, there's we chatted about it last week in our China review. And we had a feeling that this might happen, and we were batting around the pros and cons of will Liam Lawson be replaced with Yuki Tsunoda, and he has been. So let's have a chat about that. But before we do, we are Everything F1. You can find us on all socials. You find us at Join EF1 or at EF1 Official on TikTok. You can also check out our website, everythingf1.com, for daily news and articles about all things motorsport and Formula One, including this big story breaking about Red Bull. And as always, thank you to our sponsors, theraceworks.com. If you're looking for new Formula One or motorsport merch, check out their website, theraceworks.com, and use our code EF1 at checkout for 10% off site wide. Now, then, into the fun bit. Liam Lawson has been swapped with Yuki Tsunoda in Red Bull. Liam Lawson's gone back to what are they called these days? Racing
Racing
Bulls?
Bulls. Yeah.
Racing Bulls, silly name. Not as silly as last year, silly name. Liam Lawson is being demoted back down to Racing Bulls, and Yuki Tsunoda is being promoted up to Red Bull after just 2 weekends. So, initial thoughts. What were you surprised? Were you angry? Were you entirely expecting it? What were your initial thoughts when you saw the news officially
Well,
breaking?
when it came out on Sunday that it's potential, I kind of expected it to happen. I'm a surprised if you go on, excuse me, two races. No. Do I think it's fair? Not really. But I, d- there's, I don't know if it's quite as cutthroat as people are trying to make out it is.
Mm.
I think Red Bull have obviously got some more data than us and more discussions. Maybe they've had discussions with Liam about his struggles and what these issues are. Apparently, the rumor is he found out about it through the press, possibly. I don't know. It does, on the face of it, seem a bit knee jerk, and a bit panicky. And Max Verstappen doesn't seem to be overly happy. An ex, that's it, Guido van der Garde, I think his name
Mm.
is, had put a post up about the treatment of young drivers through Red Bull, and Max Verstappen apparently liked it. And it wasn't a particularly flattering post around the treatment of drivers and Lawson and stuff like that. So,
Mm-hmm.
you know, as you said in the previous podcast, Max Verstappen has actually said that the car's not an easy car to drive. Uh, and clearly it's caught Liam out and they've decided to deal with it sooner rather than later.
They have, and they have made it sooner. And yes, obviously we don't know the full ins and outs of it, and they claim it's data, all this sort of stuff. But the part that got me, we get into lots of different elements of it, and Guido van der Gaard's post what was interesting, and Max's kind of initial reactions. There's been no official comments from him yet, but his initial reactions and stuff like that suggest that he thinks this is a little bit unfair. I'm not sure he's going to be particularly keen with having Yuki in the car beside him. Um, I don't think he's afraid of Yuki. I don't think he thinks Yuki will be faster than him, but Yuki's a more kind of explosive personality, and Max possibly only wants one of them. But the big thing that I've heard just so much talking about was in Red Bull's Christian Horner's official statement. It was only like 3 paragraphs long, 3 sentences long. The thing that seems to have caught in so many people's craws, and Will Buxton in particular was the first one to really, really call this out. The line is, and I quote, "We have a duty of care to protect and develop Liam, and together we see that after such a difficult start, it makes sense to act quickly so Liam can gain experience as he continues his F1 career." End quote. That is pathetic.
Yep.
That is utterly, utterly pathetic. To quote Will Buxton, that is laughable to say that they have a duty of care to protect Liam. He's only had 11 races before jumping into that Red Bull seat. The duty of care was to not put him in the damn Red Bull seat to begin with. Let him have more time to develop as a driver. You have the other and sorry, and then he goes on to say, um, he also said, "quote Yuki's experience will prove highly beneficial in helping to develop the current car." What experiences you highly beneficial experience has Yuki developed in the past two races that he did not have in December? It's farcical is what it is, and Red Bull are bad for this. And yes, Formula One's a cutthroat sport and all that sort of stuff, but this is as Will Buxton said, this is not them having a duty of care to protect Liam. This is Christian Horner and Helmut Marko protecting their own arses and their own positions in Red Bull. And they know well, if they finish fourth in the championship, they'll probably both be sacked. Helmut doesn't work for them, but they're probably both gone if they finish fourth in the championship.
Yeah, that's fair. Uh, there is hypocrisy in a lot of sides. So Will Buxton said this, but then he's on Drive to Survive saying that if you're slow, the top 20 drivers, it's cutthroat, you need to
Yeah.
leave. You know, it's not that paraphrasing, but he basically kind of said you need to put on the big boy pants and be fast or you're out. And now he's going, this is pathetic and duty of care. Now, I was thinking about this when I was just coming in, and if any other team came out with that and said, look, I don't think we don't think this is working. We've got a duty of care, and they had another team to move them to. I don't think that there'd be quite the same amount of anger and emotional reaction. Because
Mm,
if Williams did it, they'd be like, well, actually, okay, Williams don't normally do this. The problem for Red Bull is they've kind of having to lie in the bed they've made because they do this all the time, and it just seems disingenuous.
mm,
It's probably not. But the problem is, it looks bad, it sounds bad, and then there's reports coming out that Honda offered a further 10 million to get Yuki in the car for Japan,
mm,
and they said no. Then they said yes. There was other reports about other drivers being involved in the swap. Uh, so yeah, I think there is an element of covering their bases. There's elements. It could be true that they're looking to protect Liam. He is a rookie and he's just struggling with that car.
mm. I agree. There is okay. So is it cynical as hell to say that Christian Horner is lying through his teeth? I don't think so. I think it's just totally like as you said, they have just such an abysmal track record with stuff like this that for him to come out and say, "Oh, I care." Do you remember the really old South Park episode with the British petroleum oil spill, and they had that joke about the head of BP coming out and going, "We're sorry, sorry." That's what it strikes as. It's completely disingenuous. It's
Mhm.
total bullshit. Everybody in the entire world can see through it, and I sincerely hope that Ted Kravitz grills the hell out of him again, like he did in China, in Japan. But anyway, for Liam, you're right. It like we spoke about this on last week. Is it the end of his career? No, absolutely not. Look at literally everybody else who's left from being Max Verstappen's teammate. Pierre Gasly went on to win a race. Daniel Ricciardo left, struggled a little bit, won a race. We won't talk about what happened after that, but he did leave Red Bull and win a race. Alex Albon is now leading Williams back to the midfield, and he is their spearhead to lead them back to the front. They have all had spectacular careers, and these are all the ones that we're saying, oh, oh, Red Bull ruined their careers. It absolutely didn't. Um, and moving back down to the racing bulls is a good thing for Liam Lawson in the grand scheme of things. But the point of the matter is, it's where he should have been all along.
Mhm.
And the talk has all been, Yuki Tsunoda. He only has, let's be honest, he has a year left with Red Bull if he's lucky. Like, but it's
Mhm.
coming like the end of 2024. Yuki and Red Bull know he's got that contract. They've got that Honda partnership. They can't really get rid of him while they have Honda engines in the back of the car, but he has one season with Red Bull, the Red Bull family left. Put him in the Red Bull car. No
Yep.
harm, no foul. If they put him in the Red Bull car from the start and he flopped within three races, then they can go, see, we told you, Liam, you can have the car now. But
Yep.
they've done it the other way around, and it makes Red Bull and it makes Red Bull look even worse. And we said this again. It's an interesting point. Is that like this is probably the best thing that could happen to Yuki Tsunoda. One, it's his home Grand Prix, the Honda engine, all that sort of stuff. But he is in a total win-win situation. Red Bull are in a lose-lose. There's no happy outcome for Red Bull, no matter how they try and spin it.
Mhm.
Either Yuki steps in and he flops exactly like Liam has done, and Yuki just comes out and go, not my
Mhm.
fault. Perez and Liam told you this car was a dog. I'm coming in. This car is a dog. I'm not Max. I can't drive it like Max. The car is crap. What are you going to do? Um, Feck it. I've got, what are they going to do? Swap the drivers again? No. Um, or he goes in and he runs away with it and he's right on Max's level or near enough and does exactly what they need for a second driver to be doing. And Yuki comes out and goes, well, you should have put me in the car from the first place, shouldn't you?
Yep. This is a great position for Yuki to be in.
Yep, completely.
You
And
can't lose.
he absolutely can't lose. And even Helmut Marko came out today and someone asked him, how long will Yuki be in the car? How long will Yuki have? And Helmut Marko says, till the end of the season. They know that even if Yuki is 20th for the next four races, the only thing they can do is either bring Daniel Ricciardo back, bring Sergio Perez back, or leave him there. They cannot swap
They,
the drivers again.
they can't probably can't do it with any other driver. This is the throw of the dice, and they've thrown it early.
Yeah.
They literally can't now because you're like it's becoming a laughing stock. Uh, as you say, it's a win-win for UK, as you've said. It's a lose-lose for Red Bull because, as you said already as well, either put him in the start or now he good. Why did you not put him in the start? And when you look back at Christian Horner's comments about why they put Lawson in over Yuki Tsunoda at the start, they said that Liam had a better potential because he's already almost the same. He's at the same kind of level as Yuki. Yuki Tsunoda's had 4 years. He's had 11 races over 2 years. So there's a higher potential,
Mm.
ceiling. Obviously, that was a lot of crap. Um, I wrote an article quickly just covering the situation and detailed the differences between how Mercedes dealt with Kimi coming in, as you highlighted in the podcast as well. That they had a plan for a year with
Mm.
Kimi. They've clearly not got a plan with Liam. They've literally went, here's a car that's difficult to drive. Go on, get on it.
Yeah.
And he's come in and went, this car's hard. And when Max Verstappen even says, this is a tricky car to drive,
Mm.
he's just able to work with it. Like, come on, what are they doing? Like, I don't. It's a strange one. Even for Red Bull standards, it's bizarre, and it doesn't come across well for anything other than Yuki Tsunoda because he can do what the hell he wants now.
Yeah. Yep, and again, they said that, at the end of last year, oh, we put them in the car together, and Liam was so impressive, and he has a higher ceiling of potential than Yuki Tsunoda. Again, he might well do. You only have a year left with Yuki. Put him in the car. Let Liam develop his craft for a year in the relatively decent racing bulls. Let him score points. Let him fight for podiums when they come up. When everything goes like haywire in a mad race in Australia, for example. Let him build the confidence and then let him step up to what should be a brand new car next year that might not have the same. I mean, I don't believe that they're not going to design it for Max next year, but say Max decides to leave midway through the season, then they have to not design it for Max for
Mhm.
2026. And then put Liam in the car. You've solved your own Yuki problem. Put him in. If he doesn't work out in the Red Bull, you could say, well, we're getting rid of him anyway.
Mhm.
Um, and but even like the direct comparison. So Lawson came into Racing Bulls in USA, so Texas last year, race 19. And Lawson's results for the final six races were ninth, 16th, ninth, 16th, 14th, 17th. Yuki Tsunoda's results in that same period were 14th, retired, 7th, ninth, 13th, 12th. That is not comparable. Yuki was quicker. Yes, okay,
Mhm.
Liam scored points in the first race back, and Yuki didn't. If I'm not wrong, in Texas, they fecked up Yuki's strategy. Again, he retired in Mexico and then scored a seventh and a ninth and 12th, 13th and 12th to Liam's 14th and 17th. Yuki was better. Simple as that. Small margins. Yuki was on better form.
Now,
There was no reason.
but even before that, Yuki Tsunoda was the cannon fodder for Danny Rick. You put Danny
Yeah.
Rick in the racing bulls, he's going to wipe the floor with Yuki, and then we've got a reason to put him into the Red Bull next to Verstappen, and everyone's happy.
Mm.
Danny Rick couldn't handle the car, or whatever it was he couldn't do, and Yuki Tsunoda was either near him or better than him. Now that's the sign to put on. That's the comparison. This is the golden child of Red Bull, and Yuki was within whatever it was or ahead. Like so, they they kind of dug their heels in. It's a bit like trying to get ask Helmut Marko to share a nice opinion about a young driver. Like
Hmm.
he's just not going to do it. Even if he does have one, he just won't do it. He's not going to change his mind.
Yeah,
So, and
but
that's that. It sounds very much like they cut their nose off to spite their face. They're like, "We'll show you that Liam's better than Yuki. I know you're saying this, but look, we'll show you." Then 2 races in, they're like, maybe you've got a point actually."
but even the comparison between like Yuki to Danny, and yeah, okay, they let Danny go because Yuki wiped the floor with them,
Hmm.
relatively speaking, for what they were in. Yuki had one, two, three, four, five, six, seven point scoring finishes while he was Danny Ricciardo's teammate last year, and three retirements in that time. Um, and Danny in the same time had one, two, three point scoring finishes
It's
to
not even
Yuki
close.
Tsunoda's seven. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven. To yeah, to Yuki's seven. 3-7. That's not even remotely close. If you put them in the Red Bulls and they're challenging for wins, that's a spectacular gulf in point difference.
Yep.
It just happens to be that because they were fighting for minnow points because they're a midfield team, Danny finished on 12 points and Yuki with two extra point scoring finishes later on in the season finished on 30. That doesn't look like as massive a gulf. But it absolutely is when you're talking about like 1 or 2 points every race. Like it's incredible and ah, I don't know what to make of it. So what do Red Bull do for next year? Because if Helmut Marko's right, this is the lineup now for the rest of the year. I don't believe a word any of them say. I'll just put them out there. For all we know, they'll bring David Coulthard back.
Well, I think
um,
David Coulthard would even touch it with a barge pole. Sebastian Vettel's probably the same. Like, no.
so this is exactly the question I was going to ask. Aston Martin, they are knocking on the door. Adrian Newey wants him. We know Lawrence Stroll wants Max Verstappen, and Max likes Honda and has voiced that he would be interested in following Honda. If Max leaves, what do Red Bull do next year? They keep Yuki without Honda and put Liam in the car? Do they
I don't
promote
think
Arvid Lindblad? What do they do?
Yuki's not staying if Honda's not there.
No, I don't think so. So like what
I think Yuki will if it wasn't for Stroll being in the Aston Martin, I would see a Max Verstappen, Yuki Tsunoda,
Sonoda?
Honda powered Aston Martin team
Hmm.
with a bit of Honda backing, and celebrate it, get in there, get big it up. I don't know what Red Bull will do. I think the only thing Red Bull could do then is open the checkbook up and see if they can entice one of your marquee drivers for another team, like your Charles Leclerc,
Oscar Piastri, Lando
Your
Norris.
Russell, yeah, one of those guys, and really just break the bank like they did for what happened? Who was it when Bottas went to Mercedes
Hmm.
from Williams, where they kind of had to really break the bank and give Williams free, gave them like free engines and paid up contracts, like something's really stupid. But even at that, there isn't a guarantee anymore that the Red Bull's an enticing project. If you look at everybody that's left, excuse me, when you've got you're losing people that are going to other teams as like team principals. Adrian Newey's not there anymore. They've no longer got a car that's particularly on the front foot. I mean, this is a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, and they were dominating,
Hmm.
and this all happened. There'd be a few drivers that would be like, maybe. I just don't.
Carlos Sainz is the happiest man in the world this year. That he wanted to, or Red Bull couldn't give him an offer sooner because he wanted a decision last summer, and they said no, we can't give you a decision that soon because they'd just given Perez a 2 year extension. Um, he must be the happiest human in the world right now. But actually, on Perez, this is it. Like it just goes all the way back to like the Red Bull were the best and the most methodical junior driver development program racing system in world motorsport. Their conveyor belt of talent was incredible. And the fact of the matter is, they still have an incredible list of junior drivers, and every single one of them is probably looking at that going, "Oh, I don't want to race for Red Bull in Formula One."
No.
And it all stems back to, in my mind, it all stems back to hiring Sergio Perez.
Yep. They forgot about their driver. They forgot the reason they're there. And instead of just putting in a young driver, allowing them to develop, they brought in Perez, who, as we all know, is a good midfield driver, but is not the type of driver they should have had in the car.
Hmm.
And then it just went to shit.
Yep.
But in all honesty, it's probably been since Albon Gasly that things have started to unravel because they they panicked back then as well. There was another phrase I was going to drop in, but for YouTube reasons, I won't use it. But they brought in Albon very much last minute. It didn't work out. They they bottled it, brought in Gasly. Gasly worked out for a wee while, but then the following season couldn't quite work out the car, made some mistakes. The car wasn't quite to his thing. I mean, it's a very similar script to all these drivers, to be fair.
Hmm.
They just don't seem to have the patience to just allow them to just do what they need to do and learn and make their mistakes. And I think
Hmm.
there's a couple of teams that done that. I mean, the only other team that's got rid of a driver relatively quickly in comparative terms was Williams with Sargent, but then like that's understandable
Yeah,
because of what he was doing.
they'd given him a whole season, or they
It
had
was
him for
like
a
a
season. They
season.
give him a whole another half a season. But they didn't extend his contract. They didn't have a flurry of junior drivers waiting in the wings to take the chance. And it wasn't a case of this car is designed for Alex and Sargent simply can't get on top of it. Sargent simply wasn't good enough.
Yep.
It's a really, really massively different line in the sand there.
Yeah, it's 100%. And I think the only other situation where a driver probably should have been removed from a car sooner was when Mazepin was in the Haas
Yep.
because he wasn't good enough. Unfortunately, his father was the main sponsor, and other things happened to force that issue to be resolved in the way that it should have been beforehand. But it's a strange one, and what makes it even worse was initially the reports. Now these are unconfirmed, but a few people kind of reported them through social media that apparently Red Bull looked at Colapinto for a loan for a season. So basically, put Colapinto in the racing bulls, put
Mm.
Yuki in the main car, and just
Oh,
can off Lawson
Cam
altogether.
Lawson,
Yep. However, Alpine went no.
not a hope in hell.
It didn't happen. Probably Briatore was just like, "Are you kidding me?" Uh, so that was a non-starter.
Mm.
And then they've just obviously decided to put Liam back in the Racing Bulls. If that's true, that's even worse. To just can him off the way they did.
It
And
sounds like they're
also,
keeping him because they have to. They didn't have someone else. Arvid Lindblad is too young and too
mhm.
inexperienced right now. But yeah, so that's even worse. I have a couple of stats here. I'm sure a lot of people have seen these floating around, but of Red Bull's drivers since they came into Formula One, the drivers who have raced the fewest F1 races before getting the Red Bull drive, Liam Alex Albon had 12. Danny Kvyat at 19, Max 23, Sebastian Vettel 26, Gasly 26, and Daniel Ricciardo 50. Liam only had 11. So Albon didn't have much experience either, but Liam had even less. And then it gets even worse when you look at the fewest race starts for Red Bull before being canned from Red Bull. Christian Klein got 28, which back in the day was like nearly two full seasons.
Mhm.
Alex Albon was 26, which was a season and a bit. Danny Kvyat was 21. That was a full season. Pierre Gasly was 12. That was half a season. Antonio Liuzzi was 4, but Red Bull didn't know what they were doing there. And Robert Dornbos, who I had never even actually heard of, was only in 3 races.
I've
So
heard of them.
a driver that I had never heard of raced for Red Bull for longer than Liam Lawson did.
Yeah, I mean, I heard of Robert Dornbos. Couldn't tell you anything about him.
He
Couldn't
raced
even
for Red
remember
Bull
when he
3
finished.
times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this
Uh,
is a team that had Antonio Liuzzi and Scott Speed in them at one point.
yeah.
We have scraped the barrel on certain drivers in that team, and then it's fair. Some of them you're like, why are they here? What is going
Mm.
on? And the fact that Liam raced in two different tracks, he's never raced that before. One of them had a lot of changing conditions where, a race winner canned it behind the safety car, and
And
another
a double world champion.
and a double world champion spun off and hit the wall. Uh, and then go to China and you have one practice session before you go into sprint qualifying. you know, should he be down at the bottom at 20th with the Red Bull that is supposed to be a good car, whether it's tricky or not? No.
No.
But then you're going to a track that he's raced on a lot because I think he done was it Formula Japan or he raced in the Japanese series, Super
Super
G or
Formula, yeah.
Super Formula. That's the one. Uh, so then you go there and you can him before you get there.
Yeah.
It's a strange one. I mean, for Red Bull, Yuki needs to be in the Q3. Even if he gets the Yuki and he's 10th, all is forgiven.
Hmm.
Not really, but that's kind of the mentality. If he ends up being third, fourth, or fifth and replicates what he did with the Racing Bulls, then you're kind of like, oh, aye. But then all that does is reinforce the fact it should have been there from Australia anyway. So,
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
it's just such a strange, weird. It's a decision by committee, I think.
Yeah. And
Uh,
again, to go back to that point of Will Buxton's, they have not done this out of care for Liam's career. As I spoke of, the rumors that potentially they were just going to can him off entirely. They clearly don't give a shit about him, to be frank
Clearly.
about that. Excuse my language. They're doing it to save their own asses because at this point they think Yuki's gonna beat both Red Bulls in the championship in the sister car. And Red Bull have always sort of had this awkwardness of having the junior team, which Zach Brown is a very vocally against, and I can't say I disagree with him. But it's always been a moment of slight embarrassment for them when the junior team outdoes them. Obviously,
Mhm.
Toro Rosso, as they were, won a race before Red Bull did in the hands of Sebastian Vettel. Um, and anytime that the Toro Rossos or the AlphaTauris or whatever they're called outdo the Red Bulls, it's not a good look for Red Bull.
None of this is a good look for Red Bull. 100% not a good look. And I don't think any spin will make it a good look. I think that's the issue that they've got themselves between a rock and a hard place.
Mm,
Like, how do they spin it? The best PR team behind their social media people aren't going to do it. You know, it's like, welcome to the team. And then, do you know what? I just don't think they celebrate anything in terms of, I think they just do it like they would normally do it. Nothing extra. If he gets to top three, great. If Yuki Tsunoda somehow manages to win his first race, Red Bull, Yuki Tsunoda wins in Japan and it's his home race and everyone's on it. You just do that. Don't mention the fact you've swapped him out. It just doesn't get discussed. It's like the dirty little secret because
they
that's all they can do.
they are hoping. They have put every single one of their eggs in the basket that Yuki is within a position of Max in Japan because they could spin it to be hilarious if Max finished 17th and Yuki was 18th. But,
Well,
because exactly like that, they want to put all their eggs in. Yuki had a great race at his home Grand Prix with Honda and blah 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 blah. And by the way, can we all just forget about that and go off to
yeah,
Bahrain and be happy?
it just will
Um,
not be mentioned. I just
no,
that's how they'll do it. That's the only way they can do it.
yeah.
No, yeah, and
But again, the flip side of it is Yuki gets in. So we spoke there about how few races Lost have done, how few others have done, like Albon and Gasly and stuff like that. Yuki Tsunoda has done 89. Well, he's had 89 Grand Prix starts and 92 Grand Prix weekend entries. He had three DNSs in his career, but 89 Grand Prix. And they're saying they've brought him in for his experience. If his experience, which all of a sudden he has, according to Christian Horner, that didn't have 2 races ago, if his experience can't get him out of Q1, they look even worse. That's the thing that like I don't want this to happen for Yuki. And all this is said, I'm actually delighted for Yuki. Completely aside of Liam, I feel awful for Liam, but all that, I'm delighted for Yuki. He 1,000,000% deserves his shot. It's probably not how he would have even wanted to get this shot. But you take what you're given in Formula One. Um, but I'm delighted for Yuki, but if he goes in and he can't do it, then just the spin just gets even worse. And I just all I can hope is that the reporters and the media at the track in Japan and in Bahrain and in Saudi Arabia and they don't let this die. Keep referring to this, especially if Liam does well. And do not let Red Bull spin this into forgetfulness because they'll only do it again. We'll get to next year and they'll have a driver lineup and they'll drop one and they'll go, oh, they weren't good enough, and they'll because they repeat it every couple of years and it's ridiculous. And we're still sitting here. You got Craig Slater on Sky News saying, well, Yuki just couldn't handle it, or Liam just couldn't handle it, and they needed to make the switch for their championship and defending them. It took Crofty a little while, but he finally came out and started like crapping on them for it. Um, but you've got like every sort of major news source saying, "Oh, well, they had to do it," and just buying the spin, which is just bad reporting as far as I'm concerned.
It's a bit amateurish in that respect. I mean, if you've got access to them, you have to ask them the difficult question. You have to say to them. And the one question you ask would be, was putting Liam in the car at the start the wrong decision? And do you know what? There'd be a lot more respect if Red Bull came out and said, do you know what? We did make that mistake.
Yeah,
That was
absolutely,
our
100%.
fault. We tried it. We shouldn't have. On hindsight's wonderful thing, and we should have maybe took more. We should have maybe took more time to look at the comparisons or look at UK. And people would go, all right. But the problem you have there is because of Red Bull's history with drivers,
Mm,
I don't think, even if they came out and were honest, there would still be a bad taste in everyone's mouth about it
yeah,
because it's Red Bull and this is what they do. I mean,
and
yes, they're very, very, very prominent in how they support young people and get them in there. But is it that their expectations are far too high? Are they expecting every driver to go through Red Bull to be a Vettel and be a Verstappen? And if you're not anywhere close to that, you're not going anywhere. Am I going to
mm,
can you? And you make a slight mistake and you're out the door. It's not sustainable. You can't work like that.
no. And they've been again. We spoke about this before, but I think it's worth mentioning that last season they were found out. They were able to skate by on Perez having a high and then dipping for three quarters of the season because for most of 2021, 22, 23, they were so dominant that even though the car has sort of always been a little bit of a twitchy dog, it was maybe 10% better than every other car, and it would have been 15% better than every other car if it wasn't as twitchy as it is. It was just that they were so far ahead, but they could get away with it because Max could just bring home both championships on his own. Last year they got found out because Max couldn't do it on his own, and only that, McLaren almost gave it away, and then Ferrari nearly caught them. Like, it wasn't through Red Bull's genius that they were sort of still within a really wild race of winning the championship last year. It was through the other teams fucking up. That won't happen this year. It's already not happening this year. Um, McLaren, not on paper, but on merit, they have two 1-2 victories. Just the way it is. Piastri would have finished second in Australia. Um, and they've been found out, and you would think that they would learn from that pretty damn quickly that, oh crap, we can't do this. We need two drivers. What do we need to do to make sure that the second driver, and in their mind, like you said, it's still, oh, we just put someone who we're going to expect to be Max Verstappen in the car, and then we're not going
Mhm.
to give them any support or prep to allow them to even potentially be Max Verstappen or pretend to be Max Verstappen, and then when they're not Max Verstappen, we're going to fire them for not being Max Verstappen. It's
Yep.
insanity. Total insanity.
The, the idea that most Yuki's rookies would be anywhere close to Max, who's a generational talent
Mm,
within such a small time, as you say, with very little prep, very much last minute. And you go to Australia with mixed conditions, and then you're surprised that he qualified last and then crashed out, and then you go to China, a race he's not done with one, and then they seem almost taken aback by the gap, and you're like everybody else is kind of going, no, we're not particularly surprised at that.
yeah.
Actually, more surprised if he was closer.
Mm.
And for a team like Red Bull to seemingly mishandle this situation so badly, and as you say, the mainstream media go, well, it was to protect Liam. No, it's not. They
No,
made a
it's not.
mistake. They got it wrong. This is them trying to come out and say that they're mishandling. And maybe there is an aspect of we really can't keep expecting this of him. But everyone's issue and my issue is they should have known that before they put him in the car.
Yeah.
That they're not stupid people in this that make these decisions.
And to the point of, if they come out in Japan and say, okay, maybe we shouldn't have, we made a mistake, blah blah blah, and they do have a great PR team, and I'm sure someone is trying to get Christian Horner to say, yeah, we made that mistake. We sorry, it didn't help anybody. Helmut Marko will just go say his own thing, completely blow all of that out of the water. But the flip side to that is crap. I lost my train of thought. Um, the spin of sorry, you look back in time. Red Bull were always at their best when they had either an incredibly dominant car or two drivers fighting. 2010, when they won their first championships, both Weber and Vettel were in the fight right to the end, and they won the Constructors' Championship. 2011, they had the dominant car. 2012, Weber wasn't in the fight, and they damn near lost both, only for a couple of basically Roman Grosjean doing a double flip over Fernando Alonso is how Red Bull won that championship. They did not run away with it, and they couldn't do it on Seb alone. 2013, they did it on Seb alone. 14 day to crap car. They couldn't, and Seb wasn't performing. They couldn't do it. And for years after that, they were flip flopping around. They finally get back to having a competitive car. And 2021, okay, we won't talk about Abu Dhabi, but about the final result of it. But what did Sergio Perez do? He held up Lewis Hamilton for several laps to allow Max to be in the position to win the championship. They're at their best when they and people like the media always keep saying, "Oh, how are McLaren and Ferrari going to manage having two alpha drivers, having two number one drivers?" They won't care if they win the championship.
No,
If they do it
they'll
properly,
do
they'll win the
they
championship.
they'll do what they do. They'll keep both drivers in a chance to win a championship, and at one point, one driver will have the chance, the other driver won't,
Exactly.
and they'll put all the eggs in one basket. The only time that you'll have an issue is if, like, say, Piastri and Norris, right up to the last race of the season, both have a chance to win the title,
Yeah.
and then it's just a case of letting them race.
And
Everyone they'll get what they get. Whoever's at front of the other will get the favourable strategy. So, and they know the rules. Don't take each other off.
and if for any sort of thing of oh well that never works, look at Mercedes in the Hamilton and Rosberg years.
Mhm.
2014, the title went down to the wire. Granted, it had that weird double points rule, but the title went down to the wire, and Rosberg was in it until his engine died.
Yeah.
Otherwise, he was in the fight for it. He probably would have lost it by like 10 points rather than like 44 or something like that. It was a very unrepresentative gap between the two of them at the end of that year. 2016, they crashed into each other and they fought tooth and nail for the entire season. And again, it came down to the very, very, very last race, the last corner of the last race, with Hamilton doing everything he possibly could to keep Rosberg behind him and get Seb to come in and overtake him. And the only rule was don't hit each other again. And
Mhm.
when they did hit each other, they got an utter bollocking from Toto Wolff and Nicky Lauda, and that was it. They were handcuffed then for a couple of races until they got their shit together again, and then they were free to race. That's
Yeah.
how they do it. And if I think not necessarily Zach Brown, but Andrea Stella could certainly manage that, and so could Fred Vasseur. So I'm not worried about the McLarens or the Ferraris if they hit each other and take each other out because the Ferraris did touch in China, but if they take each other out, they'll get a bollocking and they'll get no assistance from each other for the next several races,
Mhm.
and then they'll open it up again. Red Bull have to do the same thing. And either they commit to their young driver program and give them the time, but like take the weight of pressure off them, or they scrap that entirely and they go and spend all the money in the world on Oscar Piastri, Orlando Norris, or George Russell, or someone like that, and design the car so that both they and Max Verstappen can drive it. Other than that, Red Bull are out of the conversation.
Yep. I mean, I know some people like how difficult is it to manage two drivers. To me, I might be saying this wrong because I've got naivety, but I don't think it's a hard thing to manage.
Yeah, it's been done
It's
for
very easy.
all of Formula One history.
If you've got two drivers who've got a car, they're both together, they can win a title. As you say, these are the rules of war or the rules of battle, the rules of combat. You break the rules, you're getting either fined, I'll bollock you, we will bollock you in public, we'll let the media know. In private, we'll bollock you even harder, and we'll just not help you.
Yeah,
Like there'll be if when you come to the end of the race, it'll be no free to race. You will be told to hold station, and that's it. And that's on you guys and whoever's behind the other person. Tough, deal with
yeah.
it. And if you want to win a championship, you listen to that.
And
It's not
again,
hard.
you look at from the again you go back to Mercedes. Their whole thing was they're free to race. They just can't take each other out because at the end of the day, the team doesn't care about the drivers' championship. Red Bull do because Max Verstappen is Red Bull and Red Bull is Max Verstappen at the moment, and it helps both brands. But every other team doesn't care about the Drivers' Championship. Red McLaren didn't give a crap about the Drivers' Championship last year. They just saw a good news story developing sort of out of the blue and jumped on it. They only care about the Constructors' Championship. But the fact of the matter is, if you've two senior drivers, if you've two top drivers fighting for wins and podiums every week, you will win the Constructors' Championship several races early. Both of your drivers will still be in contention, and you do what Mercedes did, win the title in, well, what would have been Japan, Suzuka or Texas, or something like that, and say, right, lads, you 4 races left. Off you go. Hit each other. Don't hit each other. We don't care. We've earned our money. Do whatever the hell you want. Earn your up.
Mm-hmm.
Like they do not care about the drivers' championship. And the
Yeah,
simple thing is, win us the constructors, and you could do literally whatever the hell you like.
yeah,
You can go playing bumper cars in the street if you want to. It
yeah.
doesn't matter. And Red Bull do not have that option anymore.
Publicly, it would be very much, oh no, we've got things, but privately, like, do you know what? We don't really care. Let's
Exactly.
crack on. Yeah, you know,
Yeah.
we've got money in the bank. You know, we've not hit the cost cap. You know, that's fine. So yeah, Red Bull are. It's such an enigma for such a team that done it so well and done it so right and got it all perfectly right for so long. You know, we're at a situation now. It's like, how are they getting this so muddled? Like, it's
Yeah.
just on the outside, it seems like an easy thing to sort and easy things to do, and they just always seem to be picking the wrong choice.
Mm.
It's the same as when all the Christian Horner stuff came out. Whether it was right, whether it was wrong, it felt like it was mishandled. Adrian Newey left because of it again. Was that mishandled? Helmut Marko at one point was ready to go because there was all the civil war last year, and then that had to be kind of reined in. Other people have went away to become, team principals at other places, and I know other teams have had something similar, but there just seems to be a lot of just things that, for a team that are so decorated in Formula One and
In
seem
a
to know what
really
they're
short
doing
space of
in
time.
a really short space of time, as well as you said. Uh, just how quickly they seem to have went to mishandle it.
Mm.
And it's a really, really bizarre thing. Like the driver side of it, we kind of get because they do that. It's a bit harsh how they've done this. Probably not, probably more than a bit harsh. They're never going to come out smelling anywhere nice in this situation.
No.
But just in general, the lead up to it, the reason why, the reason they gave why he's in the car, the reason why they've took him out the car, the fact that they've not even discussed the fact that Honda are involved in the decision making. Yeah, when they've came out and said we've got a duty of care to help Liam, but then people are saying that they were looking to bring Colapinto in and get rid of Liam altogether, and that's a loan. That's putting a driver that's not even theirs and the team it's designed to develop their young drivers.
Mm.
That's bizarre if that's even close to being true. I don't know what's going to go on. I think this is a very similar thing to a lot of teams. You get teams that win everything. McLaren, back in your Prost Senna sort of days, won a lot of things.
Mercedes.
Then disappeared for a wee while. Haven't really done very well. Mercedes in the recent generation, you had the McLaren, Ferrari have done it with
Mm.
Schumacher. Then their car was a dog for a while and kind of got there or thereabouts. Haven't really recovered since. Williams as well, dominant, winning everything, fell right to the back of the grid, building themselves back up. This is the kind of end of this Red Bull dynasty, as it were. This is then becoming just a team within Formula One,
Yeah.
who and then maybe in a couple of years' time, like maybe the time where they were dominant and they won from 19 out of 22 races, and everyone just knew that Verstappen was winning a race. Now to a case of, oh, they're in the points. Both drivers are in the points. That's exciting. And I think that's how it'll be. I think unless something's coming up with the 2026 rules, but all the talk with the 2026 rules is that Mercedes seem to have a match. They seem to have designed a power unit that's
Mm.
the power unit to win, which is worrying if McLaren are staying with Mercedes because they seem to have built their foundation up and they've took the pain to build that back up. So that's worrying if you're not got a Mercedes and
Hmm.
you're not in a Mercedes car or a McLaren. So is this the beginning of the end of Red Bull as we know it? Is this the end of racing bulls? Are they going to end up being shuttered? Because you remember, the Red Bull Formula One was Dietrich Mattischitz's baby.
Yeah.
He wanted a team in Formula One. He funded it. He left it alone. He very rarely was about. once in a blue moon he turned up with his blazer and his jeans to a Grand Prix, but really didn't really bother. Watched it from afar. Now it's run by a board.
Yeah.
It's run by a
Board who
lot
have
of
no passion for Formula One.
yeah. They're in it because Red Bull they deserve to be on the grid, and they have done a lot of things for Formula One in a positive sense.
Hmm.
But when the winning stops and things become more difficult, you need to fall back on the passion you have for the sport to keep yourself in it. And if you're ran by a group of people, you're back in your Jaguar days when it was ran by committee by Ford and people that didn't understand the idea of Formula One, or when Honda initially came in with McLaren and how they wanted to build their engines. And if you don't understand Formula One and don't have the passion for it, you're leaving. You're just
Mm.
not getting it. So, you know, there's a lot of wee things that just don't seem to be true for Formula for Red Bull just now. And if you're a Red Bull fan, you might start to think, look, I don't think the good days are going to come back relatively quickly. Uh, it's hard to win in Formula One. It's even harder to stay a winning team. And
Yeah.
when you fall off that, how long has it been since Williams have been at the front? How long has it been since Ferrari have won a championship? Mercedes, how long has that been since they were dominant? When you're not dominant, you're not dominant.
Hmm. And it's very rare for a team to do what Red Bull did and build themselves up to dominancy, lose it, and then very quickly gain it again. They lost it in 14, 15, 16, 17. They were back winning 16, 17, 18. They were back winning races. 19, 20, they're challenging in the championship. 21. So like within 7 years, they're back fighting for a championship. McLaren didn't do that.
Mhm.
McLaren's last championship of any sort was in 2007 for Lewis. It's
Yep.
taken them till 2025, but from a constructor's point of view, it took them 25 damn years.
Mhm.
Ferrari last won the constructors in 2008.
It's been a while.
It's been a long time. So they haven't done it within 8 years. Red Bull fell off from the height of a four in a row double peat to what, like fourth or fifth in the chat. Like they were nowhere for a long time with the hybrid rules coming in. And they built themselves back up and have done another four-peat for the drivers anyway, and a three-peat, three out of four in the constructors. Like that's unheard of, and it's incredible. And they're throwing it all away completely.
Yep. And the biggest issue is they just don't seem to have a light at the end of the tunnel.
Mm,
Like I think the smartest thing that a team who weren't getting anywhere was McLaren and how they just hired properly. At the minute, Red Bull are in that phase where they're losing people. Is Max particularly happy where he is just now? No. I
nope,
don't think Andy's going to be surprised if he goes at the end of the season. Or even just decides to do a Rosberg and retire and think, "Do you know what, I've done my bit, I've
I'm
won my
done.
championships." Verstappen has said numerous times he's not interested in being the most decorated Formula One driver. He's won four in a row. He's got his millions. He likes doing his indie race, his online racing and stuff. He's got I'm right in saying he's got a wee baby on the way as well.
He does.
Um,
He said he actually even said in an interview, it was just after Australia, to Sky, he's like, I'm as happy as I've ever been. I'm in a very good place. I'm not stressed at all. I'm in my personal life, I'm very, very happy, and that's all that matters. Like it's a
yep,
very mature Max Verstappen.
yeah.
Um,
He's and as you've touched on earlier on in the conversation, where did Red Bull go when Max goes? And what does the Red Bull board go when their marquee's not there and they just become another cog in the wheel that is Formula One and not Red Bull as we know it with Max Verstappen, this generational talent, because they could try and buy one, but at the
mm,
moment, who would go? Do you think Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris are going to leave McLaren, who have got all their eggs in the row, they've got all their ducks in the basket, they know what they're doing. They've went through the pain and they're now getting things going, and you're going to leave after being in that situation and being in that environment for so long, helping them through all the pain and the horrible, to then decide I'm going to go to Red Bull because they did that already, but they're not doing it now, and then having to go through all that pain again.
mm.
No. I
Yeah.
couldn't tell you anyone with any sort of confidence where I could in a unit in another universe where I would be like, yeah, I could see Red Bull buying Leclerc at Ferrari. I could see Piastri going to Red Bull or whoever else. Russell, none of them would.
Nope. And the only way I could possibly even half see it is if like a Piastri or a Leclerc, like if Leclerc gets blown away by Hamilton this year, which won't happen, he might do exactly what Daniel Ricciardo did and think, crap, he's come into my team and ruined it. I want to go be number one somewhere else. But that is just the longest of shots. I just don't see it happening.
No.
Um, and it, I don't know where Red Bull go with that Max Verstappen, and it sounds like Red Bull don't either because all the talk and all the plan, I know we're not privy to private conversations and stuff like that, but there's no way are they planning for to not have Max next year.
No.
So
I don't think there's a plan not to have him. I just don't know what their plan B is if he decides to go because he's made his money. So if he decides he's done and he wants to either go and drive somewhere else, do the online stuff, or just give up on it so that he can spend his time and he's wasted, well, not waste his money, but spend his money with his family and just enjoy life.
yeah,
What did he do? Who did he fall back on? Where did he go from there? They don't,
no idea.
they spent decades destroying their driver program, and
Albon's not going to go back there. Gasly's not going to go back there. Sainz isn't
no,
going to go back there. And the other huge unknown is, as you're saying, like Mercedes have potentially stolen another march on engine technology. We can sort of hope that Audi are doing the same thing because I don't think the Volkswagen Group would have given them the go ahead to pump all the money in the world into this without at least having a good engine, even if the car
mhm,
is a bit crappy around it. Red Bull are an unknown. They're building their own engines. They're not going to be Ford engines. Fords are going to give them some batteries and like a plug.
mhm,
Ford are there for symbolic reasons because General Motors are coming into Formula One and they're like, oh, we need the oval in Formula One. But it's not going to be a Ford engine. They don't have the might of Ford building their engines in Detroit or Spain or something like that, where they build their road cars.
no,
Like there's a huge unknown. Like you could be tempted to Mercedes or Ferrari, which is what I personally think was part of the Lewis Hamilton discussion. Is look at our shiny new engine for 26. Isn't this special? And they've done a Nicky Lauda with Lewis Hamilton, but Red Bull can't do that. They're the ones who want this engine delayed. They're the ones who wanted it stalled. They're the ones who wanted it cancelled. And you don't do that if everything's going swimmingly well for you.
oh yeah. I mean, it's the Ford partnership is not quite the same as the Alfa Romeo, which literally was just a sponsorship on the
Mm.
Sauber, and they renamed it. There is some sort of technical partnership there, but
Yeah,
as you
it's
say,
it's
it's
the hybrid
not
stuff, it's the electric stuff, and
yeah.
that's it. It's not the
There's
internal combustion engine or anything.
yeah. So there's technical and then there's a proper partnership where, as you say, like they're building everything, or there's more to it.
Like they have with Honda right now.
Yep. And Honda have figured out. It took them a while long enough, but they figured out the new power units. So yeah, they are in a very much they're in a transition, but they're in a transition where their team is not in a good place, and you don't
Mm.
want that. If you've got a stable base where you've got a good team principal, you've got a good driver lineup, but the car's in a transition because you're moving engine, you can kind of forgo a lot of things, and you can
Hmm.
kind of go right. We're in a bit of a transition, a bit like McLaren when they were in the Renault, and then they moved over to Mercedes, and they had to kind of rejig things and they took the pain, but everybody understood where they're going. As you say, nobody knows where Red Bull's going. They don't
No idea.
they're not settled on the driver because they can't seem to settle on a second driver that's going to hit the mark that they want to hit.
And they
And
refuse to limit the car for Max to the benefit of the second driver.
and it clearly the way that that car handles is baked in. It's not an easy thing to fix. If
Mm.
you've got a baked in quirkiness to a car, it's there. Carlos Sainz said that to Daniel Ricciardo when he went to McLaren. It's a funny car to drive that, innit? So some cars just have that baked in weirdness, and it's
Mm.
I think the what they said about Verstappen was he likes a very loose rear end in comparative terms and quite a
And a
pointy front,
sharp fronty, yeah.
and that's a skill to fix. That's a skill to control, and clearly, several drivers haven't been able to do it. And as we said earlier, it's the last throw of the dice,
Mm.
and
And
Yeah.
even at that, like Max's style is odd. It's not like certain drivers could just adapt to it. Fernando Alonso and Lewis Hamilton can adapt to stuff like that. But you look at the likes of like Sebastian Vettel, he can't adapt to that. He doesn't like the reason he struggled so much in 2014 and to a certain extent until the cars got lower, fatter, and wider in 2017 is because they just with the amount of torque that these engines brought in, they had such loose rear ends naturally. And his entire career up to that had been built on blown diffusers and an utterly planted rear end. Sebastian Vettel's style was like attack the exit of a corner, knowing that
Mm,
the car will just do exactly what he wants and would never slide. Max Verstappen is the exact opposite of that. He's like, I don't care if the back slides, as long as the front goes exactly where I want it to do, I'll
yeah.
get the back to play ball. And that's a weird style. It's completely unique in modern Formula One anyway.
Yeah.
Because again, the cars nowadays they're low and fat and the ground effects and stuff like that, they're not really designed to have loose rear ends. They're designed to be planted to the ground at all times on rails,
Yep. Because
which makes it
that's
even
where you get
weirder.
your downforce from.
Yeah,
That's where the grip comes from.
yeah.
And I think that's part of the reason why Daniel Ricciardo has not performed in this new iteration of Formula One, because it took away that style of his driving, and that's why he's not, in my eyes, a generational talent or a championship winning talent, because he couldn't adapt his driving style. His driving style is what it is, and no matter where he went, he just couldn't get it to work for him
Mm,
because Formula One retires drivers. Drivers don't retire from Formula One.
yeah.
That's just
Look
how
at
it
Nico
works.
Hulkenberg.
Yeah, he's just there. He's never progressed higher, never went low. He's
Mm.
just there. Uh,
Well,
it's opened a lot of questions, this decision, and I don't think we're going to see many answers anytime soon.
certainly won't. It's going to rumble on, and I'm sure we are going to talk about this a lot throughout the rest of the season, including obviously next week, the Japanese Grand Prix. Not this Sunday coming. We're recording on Friday, the 28th of March. So it's not this weekend. It's obviously next weekend. Um, really quick prediction: who finishes ahead of who, Yuki or Liam in Japan?
I want to say Yuki will finish ahead of Liam. I would really want to see how they spin it if Liam gets ahead of Yuki, though.
Hmm. Oh, we're in for a treat. Um, if the fact that it was the Japanese Grand Prix and if Suzuka wasn't already enough of a reason to be setting your alarms next Sunday for 6 a.m., the drama between the Red Bull family is certainly going to. That'll do it for us. Slightly longer than we planned, but there's just a lot of talking point for Red Bulls. They've given us some good juice this week at least. For all of their controversy. We will be back next week with our preview of the Japanese Grand Prix, which, of course, like I said, is on Sunday, the 6th of April at 6 a.m. UK Ireland time. But you have a weekend off this week, so get some sleep this Sunday and get ready for next week. Thank you very much, Coops, for joining me this evening.
Thank you very much. Thank you to Red Bull for allowing us to do this.
Yes, indeed. Thank you to Red Bull for continuing to flood us with very delightful, controversial topics of discussion. We have been Everything F1. You can check us out on all socials at JoinEF1 or at EF1 Official on TikTok. We are also now on YouTube. You'll find us there, Everything F1, all one word. If you want to check out our live streams, you see a little bit more of the raw version of these podcasts. We stream them live now and have the full episodes and other stuff up during the weeks as well. Find us over there, subscribe and like the videos if you're watching them, if you wouldn't mind. We're only starting out on it, but we're aiming to get to 100 subscribers as a first milestone, and then we're hoping to get to 1,000 by the summer break. So if you could help us out with that, we would very much appreciate it. Go over and like and share and subscribe on YouTube. One last thing as well, obviously, to thank, as always, our sponsors, theraceworks.com, for all of your F1 and for all of your F1 and motorsport merch needs. Check out theraceworks.com and use our code EF1 at checkout for 10% off site wide. We will chat to you next week. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Bye.
I might do that again because my voice cracked. We will chat to you next week. Thank you very much. Good night.
Good night.